Good morning to everyone. I'm delighted to be joined today by Representative Collins, Senator Garner, Senator Hendren, Senator Dismang is here as well, President of the Senate, and Director Bryant of the Arkansas State Police, and delighted to welcome to Arkansas Director Chris Cox of NRA Institute for Legislative Affairs. Thank you for joining us, Chris. And Representative Bob Ballinger, I failed to recognize you. Thank you for joining us and for your work on House Bill 1249. I have just signed House Bill 1249. It has now been signed into law, and I wanted to discuss the legislation briefly and acknowledge the hard work that has been put into place by the legislators that are here. Charlie Collins particularly has worked on this through multiple legislative sessions and has been persistent. He's been a strong advocate of the ability to carry firearms in public campuses. We've worked with him, but also Senator Garner, Senator Hendren has picked up the mantle and worked diligently and really worked out a compromise piece of legislation that is consistent with my view of how firearms should be handled in sensitive areas. And let me just underscore that my history a little bit, and that is that, first of all, I was at Homeland Security after 9/11. And there was a big raging debate in our country as to whether we should have more firearms in sensitive areas such as airplanes. And we passed the law that allowed the flight deck officer to be armed. And it was of great controversy. A pilot's going to be armed, that's inconsistent with flying. And we had the training requirements in place, and it's enhanced security of our airplanes. And then after the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting, as Chris Cox knows, I worked with the NRA. I worked with the Secret Service as to what we should do to further protect our school children. And so we did enhanced training requirements for school staff and gave them the option. And so I've consistently recognized that there is first of all, a Second Amendment privilege, but also a security and safety benefit from firearms by people who are properly trained. And so it's been a consistent view of mine. And so when this bill came forward and there was an argument, there was a need, a will of the General Assembly to have firearms more broadly on our campuses, I say we have to have an enhanced training capacity there, an element to it. That was ultimately negotiated and agreed to. And it's important for the public to understand that there's now two levels of concealed weapon permits. There is the one that was created in 1995, in the 1990s, and there was 4 hours of training that was required. Everyone was arguing that the sky would fall, that no one knew how to do this and use it, and that we're going to be unsafe in Arkansas. And history has demonstrated and experience has demonstrated that it's worked well. And so now we're moving into a new arena, a new area of change, but we're guided by the fact that while we'll have a new permit that will allow enhanced carry, it requires more training. And I've asked the Director of the State Police to be here because under the legislation, the Director of the State Police will design up to 8 hours of training that will be coordinated with our universities and our law enforcement community on our campuses, as well as other public institutions, to develop a training program for this enhanced carry permit. And so the public should not be confused that everyone with a concealed weapon permit is going to be allowed to go into sensitive areas. That is not true. It's going to be a much more limited population, but they will be trained, and obviously they'll be trained in active shooter circumstances, how to coordinate with law enforcement. And when that is done, I'm convinced that the public will be more safe. We will have more safety in our institutions and our public spaces. And so that is the rationale of my signing this law, but also of the negotiations that took place to balance Second Amendment privileges and to enhance those that want to be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights, but also to, when you go into sensitive areas, to have this enhanced level of training that will be very important. I would emphasize that there are restrictions under the bill. There still is no carry on private institutions that opt out. They're churches, bars, other places of private nature. Secondly, the storage of handgun in student dormitory or residence hall is prohibited. It's prohibited in grievance hearings and disciplinary procedures on campus. It is not allowed in courtrooms, and it's a Class D felony to carry a firearm in a courtroom. And so those prisons are excluded, public schools K through 12 are excluded from any of the enhanced carry. So this bill, in my view, reflects the will of the General Assembly and is constitutional and will balance public safety and the Second Amendment. And now let me introduce Representative Charlie Collins for the comments he has.
Well, thank you very much, Governor. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all your work through this process. I've said from the beginning that my goal has been to help keep our loved ones safe on college campuses. The Secret Service and the Department of Education did a study after Columbine and the massacre there, and they developed a profile of a rampage killer, and there's some bad news in that profile, including the fact that these people are plotters and planners and researchers, and they look for places where they can find our innocent folks, and they can wreak havoc and get the television cameras out and the newspaper reporters out so they can share their manifesto of hurt feelings. And there's no way to identify these people in advance. There are no racial variables, there are no mental health variables, there are no prison record variables, and these people don't snap. They don't snap spontaneously and whip a weapon out of their pocket. They plan, they research, they FOIA request for security plans. They do all the things that you would expect somebody to do who's trying to mercilessly murder our loved ones. The one thing they cannot do is plan for a good guy or a good gal with a gun who might interdict their plan. So I believe what we're doing here is increasing the safety of Arkansas by deterring some of these crazy killers from choosing to go to our campuses and potentially murder people. I really want to thank the governor for helping to educate me, because initially when I designed this, I had an arbitrary safety factor, and that was this notion of a class of person, a professor who might be more familiar with his or her surroundings as a method for helping to reduce potential accidents and things of that nature. But the governor's expertise in this area and his experience really made clear, obviously very clearly to me, the importance of doing it through a qualification process. And so what that does is it really changes the dynamic. People called me a hypocrite. Well, why don't you allow it in the in the Capitol? And it kind of said to me, well, geez, we don't have college professors here, so I don't know exactly how to make that apply. But using this superior approach of a training program to make sure people know how to behave, I think what we've done with HB 1249 is really improved that. The last comment I want to make, I think, is the most important. This issue of senseless murder on college campuses and other locations like that is not confined to Arkansas by any stretch. It's a national problem. And there are only a handful of states that have really made this step to help prevent it, to deter these folks. And I think with the governor's leadership, what we've created here is a model which many other states will over time adopt. And hence, we won't just be saving lives in Arkansas, we'll be helping people all over the country. As somebody said yesterday, Arkansas's footprint is bigger than the state itself, and I think this could turn out in this arena to be one of those things. Finally, this is not a panacea. I don't pretend that it is. Bad things can happen. There's no such thing as a perfect solution, but I believe it's going to help us move in the right direction. I really appreciate all my colleagues, particularly the folks over in the Senate that work so diligently to get us to this place, and all those in the House that helped me. Thank you.
Well, I kind of got roped into this when it came down to the Senate end, and I really did not have an intention of making this a primary issue that I was involved in this session. But nevertheless, we, as you know, we got to the Senate and the debate began to intensify, and rightfully so, because it's a serious issue. And I will tell you again, you that follow this know the progression. The original bill came to the Senate after it came out of the Judiciary Committee, and an amendment was placed on the bill on the floor, which I supported, which required additional training. And it really began the discussion about what is it that's going to make really the goal that we all seek, and that is safer campuses and a safer society. And many of us believed that it was not necessarily the narrow scope of giving professors the ability to carry, but more importantly was making sure that people who carried were qualified, as Representative Collins said that, and were aware of the challenges they might face. And so that's what we ended up with through a lot of negotiations with those who shared the same goal. There was some discussion about how far do we go on training and who do we allow to participate and what privileges do they get. And I think through the process of negotiation and through working together on, again, everybody up here shared the same goal, and I think everybody in this room shares the same goal of safer campuses and a safer society. We came up with a compromise, and I think, again, that's where I had a hand in this, was trying to work with Senator Garner, Representative Collins, the National Rifle Association, and my other colleagues in the Senate to say, what is it that we could come up with that, number one, we could pass, and number two, accomplish that goal. And I think what you see here today that was signed into law is a product of those efforts. It is a product of some give and take. Yeah, it's a little bit broader than just college professors, but it's also narrow in the fact that anybody who carries now will have to have additional training into these sensitive areas. And I think that's appropriate. And as we discussed on the Senate floor, it's a different thing carrying a weapon for personal defense than it is trying to engage in an active shooter situation with students and law enforcement and everybody mixed together. So I know that the state police will do a great job on making sure that people who are in those situations and circumstances are better equipped to do so, so that we don't have a tragic situation, but instead we prevent one. So I appreciate, again, the sponsors of the bill working with us on the Senate to come up with, which I think we all agree is a better bill than it started.
Senator Garner.
Thank you, Governor. I'll keep my comments brief. I think the Governor, Representative Collins, Senator Hendren has explained the bill details and better than I can. I'll talk about a specific reason why I support this bill. As many of you may know, I was a Special Forces Green Beret who served this country overseas in 2 trips to Afghanistan. I was a weapons sergeant, which means I was trained on weapon systems from all across the United States. When I came back from my service overseas, I was a non-traditional student who went to college for 6 years at UALR and the U of A for law school. During that time, even though I was a veteran, even though I was a weapons sergeant, I had to de-arm myself every single time I went to school. I faced that choice. Do I go, risk my career, risk breaking the law to arm myself, or do I de-arm myself and go there being unsafe? Today, we have taken a step to remedy that problem. I want to thank all parties. Thank you.
I just want to say that I've really kind of sat back and watched these guys work. So I had an idea. That's the only reason why I get to stand up here to create an enhanced permit. And then that, with the governor's help, with Charlie's help, with Senator Hendren's help, and especially Senator Garner, they took that idea and made it into reality. And so I just get to sit here and just appreciate the work that they did. But and I appreciate the public. You know, without this, without being a state that understands the Second Amendment, understands safety, understands that it's a good guy with a gun that usually stops a bad guy with a gun, that's the reason why we can get these kind of things done. So I appreciate the public as well.
And I'm delighted to have Chris Cox here. Sometimes people are behind the shadows sometimes, and I thought it would be good just to ask Chris Cox if he would join us for this. Because you know, the NRA has tremendous respect and support in the state of Arkansas. We love our Second Amendment. Sure, we've been in discussions with the NRA on this bill. We want to get their ideas, their national perspective. And so, Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. The National Rifle Association is about protecting the rights of law-abiding Americans to own guns safely and responsibly. No one does more than this organization to teach safe and responsible gun ownership. So I want to thank the governor for your long-term support of this organization and what we do to teach safe and responsible gun ownership. And this goes a long way in that endeavor. The governor mentioned 1995 when the state passed concealed carry permitting in the state. I just started working for the National Rifle Association on Capitol Hill in '95, and I remember very well the press just screamed doomsday predictions that every fender bender was going to end up in a shootout, that people couldn't be trusted, that average people in this state just could not be trusted to carry firearms safely and responsibly. Well, you fast forward now 22 years, and the people who have gone through the permit process in this state have proven to be the most law-abiding people in the state of Arkansas. Well, back in '95, when you passed that law originally, there were large areas that were carved out, including campuses, including restaurants that serve alcohol, whether you're drinking or not. There's all sorts of those prohibitions. What this law does is it's a logical step towards recognizing that people who go through this process and law-abiding people can be trusted, and arbitrary lines that are drawn don't all of a sudden make someone a bad person. Now look, the legislative process is rarely pretty. It's never perfect. This is what these gentlemen and ladies do day in and day out to protect the rights of the citizens of this state. But this step goes a long way towards recognizing that law-abiding people in this state have the right to defend themselves anywhere they have a legal right to be. And so we were appreciative of all the efforts. Is it a perfect bill? No. Do some people hate the idea of guns on campus? Sure. We hate the idea of unarmed victims on campus. We hate the idea not just of these high-profile shootings that are horrific and thankfully don't happen often, but every day on college campuses, every day across this country, there are violent crimes, there are rapes, there are violent attacks, and we're interested in making sure that people who are of age and who have gone through this process are able to defend themselves. God forbid they're put in one of those situations. This bill is a step in the right direction. We're proud to lend our support, not as a perfect solution, but as a great step forward towards protecting the Second Amendment rights of the people of this state. And we appreciate all of your work and the work of the legislature on their behalf. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. We'll turn it over to any questions.
Governor, there have been a lot of concerns raised about some things that aren't exempted under UAMS, potentially concealed weapons at sporting events on campuses. Do you think there needs to be any additional legislation to add those exemptions or address any of those concerns?
Well, first of all, you can see how difficult it is to arrive at a consensus on these issues through the legislature. And so anytime you pass legislation, there's going to be continued review as you learn about something that was missed or omitted or confusion. So, that's open for technical corrections in the future or to close gaps. And I know that Senator Dismang, why don't you come on up, Senator, and I know that you've expressed, have an amendment that you're offering.
Thank you, Governor. And to that question about some of the concerns out there, I think everyone here has kind of acknowledged in the presentation of the bill and even the bill signing that there are some issues, and it's an imperfect bill. And I think we've raised a couple of issues there. I do have a bill that is filed and amended yesterday that do two specific things at this point in time. The first thing it does is it changes the word shall to may in regards to private institutions, private colleges, universities in the state, and on the posting requirements, which means to say that they will be allowed to post the way they see fit to post on their college campuses, or would allow them to do that. The second thing is it addresses the concerns regarding UAMS. There was some discussion about limiting that just to the ER rooms. The issue there is the layout of the campus and the fact that you can get from any place on UAMS campus to any other place on UAM campus through the tunnel system or corridors. And so it's just not practical at this point, I think, to try to limit just to specific areas, but the entire campus should be exempted from the impact of 1249. And then additionally, it does exclude the state hospital from individuals being able to utilize 1249 on the state hospital. So that those are the provisions right now in the bill.
Any thought about the sporting events on campuses? That's a concern that's been raised by some people.
Specifically right now, we're dealing with those two issues. That's not to say there will not be a discussion about the other again, but as far as my intentions, where I'm moving forward, it deals with those two specifically.
What led you to make these steps, to push this amendment?
I was already examining the issue regarding posting under the existing law for private institutions, and so that bill had already been filed. And again, just through the education process about the UAMS campus and kind of how that works, decided that that was something that needed to be addressed now.
Representative Collins, do you support this?
I'm very open to looking at the different ideas that people have. As the governor said, we just got this legislation through a pretty laborious process. It's not even in effect yet. It's going to take months, actually, until the training is designed, the legislation goes into effect. So I want to make it as good as possible. As you recall, in my initial bill, I had an exemption for UAMS within a half-mile radius of the emergency room, given all the regular murders and gang interactions that they tell me are involved down there, and the increased law enforcement. That was a basis for me in my original bill. So I've been open to those types of things, and I'll remain open to doing what achieves our goal, which is protecting the lives of loved ones. That's the goal.
You're going to kill on the House side?
I think he answered that, but yes, ma'am.
Governor, this one's for you. I've had questions regarding those sensitive areas that you mentioned. Would you consider DHS, DDS, some of those heated Capitol hearings, and possibly also the Vice Mayor asked about City Hall? Would those be areas that are considered sensitive in nature?
Well, first of all, if you're in an administrative hearing at DHS, that would be like a court proceeding in which even under the enhanced carry, you would not be allowed to bring in a firearm. So there are those exceptions. I think this actually would be well received. I've noticed some concerns about DHS, and we have a security officer at DHS, and so that's an example of where we want to coordinate with the security officer to make sure that this is properly implemented and handled in a DHS office and in that environment. In terms of the other areas, are they sensitive areas? They are subject to the enhanced training. And so that if you are going to go into a sensitive area that's defined in the law then and not exempted, then you have to have this increased level of training. And so, I think that's a good balance.
As a follow-up, when it comes to mental health, are there going to be any mental health screenings available? Because I'm sure Senator Garner can tell us that just because you're highly trained doesn't mean you're immune to things like PTSD or mental disease or mental breakdown. So though you may have the qualifying training, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're fit to be in these very sensitive areas. Do you have any response to that?
It's the same restrictions as anyone that purchases a firearm. If there's an adjudicated mental health determination, then you're excluded from acquiring a firearm. Yes?
Considering the history in this country and even the state of political violence regarding firearms, do you have any hesitation allowing firearms in the state capitol?
Actually, no. Welcome to my conference room. We're not exempt. It is enhanced carry. So if somebody has a concealed weapon permit, you cannot walk into the state capitol with your firearm. But if you've gone through the enhanced training where you understand the responsibility, where you have coordinated and learned about an active shooter incident, then that enhances security. And I do not consider that as a threat, but it's an addition to public safety.
When we heard about the current concealed carry training throughout these hearings, there was some testimony that it varies greatly across the state. Some of the training programs are really good, some of them are really poor. How can you guarantee that these training programs are going to be adequate to provide the training?
I'm going to ask Colonel Bryant just to come up and just address what his approach is going to be on the training.
Thank you, Governor. Our first approach to state police is we're not going to do this alone. We have to solicit assistance from our university police departments, our sheriffs, our police chiefs, our subject matter experts, the ALETA, Arkansas Law Enforcement Training Academy. It's got to be a group effort to develop this training. And once we get that training curriculum designed, then we'll go forward, and then we will instruct the concealed handgun instructors to carry out that training.
So this would be a question for you. We've had a lot of law enforcement members raise concerns with me. Is there a precedent for active shooter training involving students, professors actually having guns? Because I know right now the training is included that is mostly just there's a bad guy and then there's law enforcement. So is there a precedent for this training? Who will administer that training? And who's going to pay for it to have all of the law enforcement in the state be retrained?
Okay, I thought that was only going to be one question. That's about 5. I'll start with the first one. Basically, you know, if you're looking at active shooter training, it's law enforcement. Then you also have civilian type of training to address. So it's got to be a balance between the two, and that's why we're going to solicit help from all these other law enforcement agencies to address that. Now, the concealed handgun instructors will be the one to teach this training, and I believe the legislation requires for a nominal fee, and we'll work that through the rules process. But you know, this bill will not be effective till September, and then we have 120 days. So we have to January to work through each of these issues as we go forward.
That's for the citizens. I mean, for law enforcement, is there a precedent that a group that can come in and actually teach law enforcement how to deal with these new active shooter situations where other people may be armed, and who pays for that?
Sure. They have what's called alert training. It's advanced law enforcement rapid response training. We have just completed our in-service training with our state police troopers. So we do have certified instructors in alert training to how to address active shooter situations. So that's how we go forward as far as the law enforcement side. The civilian side, there's another types of training for civilians.
Do you have an estimate on how many people you think will go through the advanced training? 5,000, 100,000?
No, sir. It would just be a ballpark. It would just be a guess on my part at this time.
Guess.
More than one, less than $1 million.
In the current concealed program, how many have come through that?
I have that in my notebook. I want to say around. I can give you the facts. I don't want to quote it wrong, but I do have those in my notebook right now. I can tell you how many concealed handgun holders we do have.
So basically you're saying that the same people that are doing the training now, that even a couple lawmakers that are standing up there with you today say are doing an inadequate job of doing this training across the state, are going to be doing the new training that we think is going to keep the state safe.
If we have any reports of inadequate training, we do have a process to revoke the license of a concealed handgun instructor. We take those serious, but to my knowledge, that's the first time I'm hearing of any inadequate, but I do have a concealed handgun section I can check with and follow up with you.
This is a question for Representative Collins. After a similar bill was passed in Texas last year, 2 years ago, there was some significant protests from students and professors on campuses like UT Austin. Do you expect that to happen at the University of Arkansas? And so how do you plan to engage with those groups?
Well, obviously, I don't want to ever predict what somebody else is going to do. If I can predict what I'm going to do, that's pretty good for me. But if anybody is interested in having a discussion about, you know, the what's, whys, and wherefores, I'm always happy to do that. If anybody has any ideas on how we can make things better, again, my goal is helping keep people safe. So that's always what I'm focused on, and I'm always willing to listen. I've probably been to a dozen forums at the University of Arkansas. I've got another one, I think, on April 20th, if I'm not mistaken, as well as a couple times at UCA. So I'm wide open to continue with the discussion, having the discussion, and helping to educate people and doing what we can together to keep folks safe.
Representative Collins, while you're up, can you give us a list of the incidences in which somebody has used an FOI request to obtain security plans to plan for an attack?
Yeah, I can go dig up that for you. Again, I've got one specific example, just like the example of somebody driving past a facility that had chosen to be gun-free, to be gun-free when all the other facilities were not gun-free. I don't have lists per se.
Name one facility.
Well, in that one, in the Colorado shooting, when
Any in Arkansas.
Yeah, I don't have it in Arkansas.
So it's not, so this is not a problem in Arkansas?
Well, if you take Arkansas and you say Arkansas is 1% of the United States and something has happened 100% somewhere, we're going to get about 1% effect here. And if you look at school shootings, you'll find that Arkansas gets about its fair share. And to the extent we can reduce that from 1% of our probabilistic number based on the rate these things happen down to 0.5% or 0%, I consider that progress.
And the Colorado case was a specific FOI request for the security plan ahead of time so they could plan something. Not a drive-by, but an actual FOI request.
Yeah, my understanding is there's an example of that, but this doesn't hinge on that one thing. This doesn't hinge on that one thing. If you read the Secret Service report, you will find there are extraordinary and deep examples of how these people plan. They have exact timelines for how long the average person plans, the percentage that plan. So read the Secret Service report and then ask me the questions you've got from there. Winnie, did you have something?
Yes, Representative Collins. So when you first proposed this bill, it was a handful of professors, a safety issue that you had concerns about. How did it go from that to where we are now, which includes state facilities and some businesses as well?
Let me just answer that in terms of, that is the legislative process. That is a matter of debate, consideration, compromise, and so this is the result of that legislative process. Let's take one more
Do you
question.
envision people being able to bring, I guess this is either for Representative Collins or for everyone stands here, but envision people being able to bring weapons to Razorback games in the fall?
Well, the fall, this legislation does not go into effect, or probably the rules implemented until January 1. So
the next
Festival.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you envision people being able to bring their guns to a Razorback football game into the stadium?
That is the current, actually, if you think about while you might have a sign right now that says no weapons allowed in Razorback Stadium, there's not any magnetometers, and so a bad guy could get a gun into Razorback Stadium now. This does carry the sensitive areas, so if you have, under this current law, that if you've got the enhanced training, then you would be able to go into that facility. All right, they'll be available afterwards if you have some follow-up questions. I'm making them available, but thank you all very much.